Forget gurus. Forget anyone claiming to be an online business expert without going through the challenges of entrepreneurship themselves. The Real Money, Real Business podcast is here to prove the best insights in online business comes from your fellow online business builders. We dig into stories of entrepreneurs selling their business on the Empire Flippers marketplace so that you can learn how they made their business profitable, how they overcame obstacles, and what lessons they learned in their online journey. If you want to take your business and your knowledge to the next level, you've come to the right podcast. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Real Money, Real Business podcast. We record these interviews so potential buyers have more information about the seller and the business to help them make a buying decision. Now, before we dive in, let's go over a brief summary of this business. It is a display advertising business created in February of 2018 in the technology niche. The average monthly revenue for the business is $12,202 and makes an average of $11,380 per month in net profit. The assets included in the sale are the domain and all site content and files, writer relationships, an email list with around 300 subscribers, and just as a disclaimer, Mediavine does require a minimum of 50,000 sessions per month in order to be accepted into their program. So if a buyer's Mediavine application is not approved during the migration process, they have the option to move forward with a different ad network or reverse the deal. So for everyone listening, you can visit empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for listing 67952 to learn more about the business, or you can unlock this listing to start your due diligence if you're interested in purchasing this asset. So that's a brief overview of the business for sale. Let's hear from the seller with me today. So welcome to the show, Ike. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you, Nick.
Well, thank you for joining me at your hour. And I'm looking forward to learning more about you and your business. So to start us off, can you tell me a little bit about your background in building and running online businesses?
Yeah, so before starting this website, I was actually 17. So just turned 17, wanted a way to make kind of passive income. You know, back then that was kind of the whole selling point of online courses. So I bought one after scouring YouTube on how to make kind of money online with niche sites. So that got me into starting the website. So I just wanted extra money. So I worked at the site for about 7 months, every day hammering out content about, tech specifically. So iPhone hardware, Android hardware, social media, and hammered out content about that for 7 months straight. Then applied to Mediavine, luckily got in because, a lot of people were getting declined around that period. And so ever since then, the site's been going well.
So how did you deciding about the type of business to get into to make some relatively passive income? Were you trying to decide between, for example, Amazon FBA or content sites or digital products? So you mentioned you bought a course. How did you decide ultimately that you wanted to do a content site amongst all of the different options?
Yeah, so I looked at all the options, like you mentioned, one of them being Amazon FBA. And with the other options, they required startup capital. And obviously being young, I didn't have any of that. So I started a content site specifically because it doesn't require much to start up, less than $200. All it required from me was my time, and I had a lot of that. So I thought it's best to invest my time rather than money, because if this doesn't work out, then I haven't lost anything significant. So that's what attracted me to this business model specifically.
Nice. And is this your first business and site that you've built?
Yes, it is.
Wow. Well, congratulations on this also being the business that you're able to exit here.
Yeah, it's quite lucky, I'd say.
Nice. It's been a few years since you've had this business. Why are you deciding to sell it instead of keeping it and growing it further?
I'm looking to buy a house this year, and I do want to put quite a lot of money down just to reduce monthly payments. So I thought, let me sell the biggest asset I have. On top of that, I also want to get into other different business models because I have the content site for a while. And I feel like because I always have it as a backup, not that it prevents me from starting other things. I'd say I'm just not as motivated to start other business models. I've started other successful businesses whilst I've had this site, but me knowing I have this as a backup almost prevents me from branching out into something that could, do even better for me. So main reason is obviously the upfront cash, and secondary reason is
Or the mental side.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I've definitely heard both of those reasons from a lot of sellers who, want to enter a new phase of their life, both for personal, for a home or a business. That reminds me actually of Tim Ferriss, who, before he wrote the 4-Hour Workweek, he had a pretty successful nutrition, like a supplement business. And he said he needed to sell it because he knew that he always had that as that backup and wasn't going to go full force with the book that he wanted to create. So it completely
Literally
reminded me
my
of that.
situation. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Okay, well, let's talk about the business and kind of your journey getting it to where you have built it. This is your first business. It's successful to the point of selling it for this amount. What can you say about what you've learned from building this that worked or that you think contributed to the success you experienced?
What I think contributed to the success of this site in particular is the niche. I don't know what made me choose tech, but now looking at the landscape, I'm so happy I did, because not to brag or anything or trying not to be biased, but I genuinely do think is the best niche to get into. And I'll explain why. So one reason is that when you look at other niches compared to this one, with other niches, it's almost too evergreen to the point where every site will kind of eventually end up writing about the same things. Whereas with tech, it's very dynamic, meaning there's constantly new things happening, which means there's constantly new things to write about. So not to say that it's news, but it's almost, how I'll describe it is evergreen news. So it's not news per se, but new things constantly come out, which means there's always new stuff to write about, which means you can always stack traffic with new posts easily. Whereas with other niches, let's say gardening, for example, it's nothing really changes within gardening as a whole, and it's kind of how it's always been. Whereas with tech, new products are coming out every single day. New social media apps are coming out every single day. Literally, it's kind of endless what you could write. Yes, I'd say that's what makes this specific content site very unique. And with that being said, it also means that there's more longevity with this niche because there is always stuff to write about. So with other niches, everyone's competing for the same terms, whereas with this one, for me, it's always easy for me to find new stuff that literally no other site has created content on, meaning that I always have a competitive edge.
I really like that answer because I think the go-to thought around when deciding on the niche, I think the knee-jerk response is to go for the most evergreen niche that you could go. But you are right in the fact that eventually all sites within evergreen niches will have very similar content. As a result of, I guess, the practice, used gardening as an example, the practice not really changing much. So I think that's also an accurate way of describing it about evergreen news, did you say? So yeah, consistently changing within something that could be perceived as evergreen. Very nice. Was there anything you tried with this business that didn't work as well?
With this business, something I tried towards when I first started was literally writing about everything and anything tech based. I later found out that that's not how you approach content sites. So when it comes to scaling content on a content site, you want to scale what Google kind of already ranks you for. So you can't just pump out content thinking, let me write about anything and everything tech based and I'll just keep ranking. So you have to be very specific. So there's something called top core authority where Google favors you for specific subtopics within, well, my example, tech. So when it comes to scaling, you kind of only want to write about what you usually write about. So let's say I always write about iPhones, Instagram, Twitter, Androids. I'll only want to scale keywords within those subtopics. And on top of that, it's just not any and every keywords within those subtopics. It needs to be ones that have little competition. So you want to avoid writing about things that your competitors within this space are writing about. So when I pick a keyword, I want to make sure that no more than, I'd say, one or two other blogs have written on the same thing. And I always like to see a forum in there. So it means I'll be able to rank pretty much, my rankings are kind of guaranteed, as well as traffic. Yeah, one thing I've found with this business is if you are going to scale, don't just write anything and everything tech. You need to be specific about what you're writing.
Yeah, very nice. Some might think that they are being specific when writing about tech. That's being specific enough, but I like how you went down to not only just the subtopic that you said Google ranks you for, but even going further than that in terms of your keyword selection and your topic when looking at other competitors.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. Okay. Well, let's talk about the work required now. I mean, this business, it's not the oldest business, but it's also more of a mature stage, it seems. So can you describe the amount and the type of work that you currently do on this business to maintain it?
Yeah, so with this business, every month I write a few pieces of content depending on how busy I am. I'll say every week a few pieces of content will be written, and that's not needed to drive revenue. That's just so we can kind of maintain things at a good level and possibly scale. So yeah, to kind of maintain the revenue on this site, you do want to write a few pieces of content a month. Then I'd say every 3 months, I'd say update the top 100 ranking posts. And that might sound like a lot, but that could, well, for me anyway, it would take me about 6 hours. So how I do it is I just plug it in Google Search Console, which is a tool by Google that allows you to see all the data about your specific posts. Then from there, I'll optimize the title to whatever kind of keywords has the most impressions for the article. Yeah, basically plug in all the keywords the article is ranking for to optimize it and to kind of maintain my top spot. So yeah, with this business, to maintain, all you do is write a few pieces of content a month, and every few months keep the top 100 or 200 posts updated, as well as delete content that has outperformed consistently for months. And if you do want to scale, then obviously content production needs to be a lot higher. So yeah.
Got it. So it sounds like a lot of, I guess, tasks that for any website that you operate, it's a lot of the normal operating tasks of updating content, creating new content, and if you want to scale, then increasing production.
Yeah, pretty much.
Nice. So talking about scaling, if you were to keep the business, what are some ways you would try to grow it?
Increase content production. Yeah, that's kind of the only way to grow it. I guess you could start a YouTube channel surrounding everything you are ranking for. And when you do that, because we do have so many things we are ranking for, you just have to make a YouTube channel about it. And obviously Google owns YouTube, so they will automatically put that in the SERPs and you'll be driving traffic fairly easily. And because we rank for stuff that isn't competitive, you'll find that those YouTube videos will come up in the SERPs almost instantly, and you will start getting traffic to the channel almost instantly. And from there, you kind of have another subsection of the business. But talking about the blog itself, to scale, the only way it can be done is to increase content production.
Yeah. And this niche that you are in is particularly suitable for a YouTube channel, as there are other people definitely proving that just by even having that as their only channel on YouTube. So I certainly see a symbiosis there.
Yeah, definitely is.
Nice. Well, with any opportunity, of course, there are risks with a business model. So do you want to talk about what you think are the biggest risks with this business or business model that a buyer should be aware of?
Yes, so I'm sure if you're a buyer, you are, semi-aware of this space. So biggest threat is definitely the Google algorithm. Yeah, so they do come out with updates several times a year. And what this does is it either boosts your traffic or declines it. And people tend to think that just because it declines, it's like, you're doomed. But what you do have to realize is it will decline. Like, it's almost nature. It has to decline at certain points. You're not just going to keep going up. So what I find is that, yeah, sometimes you do go up, sometimes you do go down. And it's something everybody within the space experiences. So what you do find is, yeah, if you are on social media, for example, Twitter, yeah, you will find people bragging about when their site has gone up, and no one ever talks about when it goes down. But when you are at a stage with a content site like mine, it is rare that you are getting around 500,000 visits a month and you've been in the game for 5 years. So you do know how it works, and you will realize very quickly that everybody's site goes up and down periodically. No one's site just keeps going up forever. Sometimes you have months where it's literally just declining. And obviously, it's not the nicest feeling, but it will go back up as long as you are doing the right thing. And yeah, another thing is that people think just because it's going down, you've been doing something wrong, which isn't necessarily the case. In 90% of cases, you could be following their guidelines to the T and it still declines. Not because, they've done something wrong, but how I'll describe it is Google needs to give everyone a chance. So they will decline some sites sometimes and increase other sites sometimes. And yeah, it just gives everyone a chance to play. But it doesn't mean something is going bad with the site at all. It's just something that naturally happens. Yes, it's the Google algorithm for you. That's just how it works. So yeah, that is the main threat. I wouldn't really call it a threat, but it's the thing that determines how much traffic you do get. And yeah, the way you control that is following the guidelines right, and yeah, producing the right content. And yeah, that is the only threat. And another one I'd say is competitors. But because of the way I've went about the keyword research on this site, and I don't kind of write on topics everyone is writing about, when it does come to a Google algorithm update, if, the site does get hit, it's not alarming rate. Whereas with people who write about topics that everybody else writes on, what you find is their traffic isn't really stable because they're competing with everyone else. Whereas the topics I kind of choose, not that no one else is really ranking for it, but there's very little competition. So I'm not affected as much as others.
Got it. Well, as you mentioned earlier about the Google algorithm updates and just the natural ebbs and flows of traffic in a site, I think anybody looking at this listing probably has some level of experience with content sites. And even if, as you mentioned, they don't necessarily talk about it publicly, they're probably well aware of this risk, but also just the reality of having a content site that's primarily organic based.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that's this business model. But I will say that looking at the earnings and the site traffic, that it's on an overall inclining trajectory. So that's evidence that you're doing something right here with your philosophy on content and how to continue to operate this business.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, a few housekeeping questions to wrap this up then. How much support are you going to offer a new buyer of this business?
I want to say as much support as they need because I obviously want them to have a stress-free transfer, because if I bought a business, I would obviously want the owner to tell me kind of everything they know. So yeah, I'm happy to offer the 30-day support. On top of that, outside those 30 days, I'm happy to remain in contact with the buyer because I do understand that, something may happen after the 30 days where they have further questions they really need an answer to and they just can't find it anywhere. So not that this is set in stone, but genuinely coming from the bottom of my heart, outside the 30 days, I will still remain in contact with the buyer because I do want them to have stress-free transfer and that peace of mind that they will buy a business and they can get all the knowledge they need on running it. And I know that can happen outside of 30 days. So we can remain in contact via email, social media. I'm happy with whatever.
Nice. That's awesome to hear. Okay. And just confirming that you commit to a non-compete on this business after it's sold?
Yes, I agree to that.
Okay. And are you open to something like an earnout?
Yes, but I would say majority has to be paid in cash. Then I'm happy to kind of negotiate a small percentage being an earnout over, a few months.
Perfect. And putting yourself in the shoes of a buyer, why do you think this is a business worth buying?
Yeah, it's kind of a background business where it runs on its own. So there's even been a year's period where I don't think I worked on the site at all. Still brought in thousands in revenue. Not that that's what you should be doing, but it's kind of a site where it gives you a lot of security that there's always income coming in from somewhere. And yeah, it gives you the freedom to start new things knowing that you're not completely screwed if it doesn't go well, because this thing is always producing cash flow. It doesn't require much time to maintain. And with that being said, obviously, the more time you do put into it, the kind of better it will be. And that's what I will advise. I would say just leave it there and let it rot, because you will see the negative impacts of that. Content will start to get stale and you will lose your positions. But yeah, the main kind of reason I would buy this is it produces great cash flow without much time investment.
Yeah. And that is, for certain buyers, that is exactly what they are looking for.
Yeah, that's good to hear.
Yeah. Well, is there anything you'd like to add that you think I might have missed during the interview?
No, I think I'm kind of happy with everything.
Okay, great. Well, if there are any other questions that buyers have after looking at your listing, I certainly encourage them to unlock, but then also schedule some time to chat with you to ask anything more specific that they might want to know about the business.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, I'm going to wrap this up here. So, Ike, thank you so much for sharing your story and joining us on today's episode. And yeah, I hope your business is purchased in the near future and by the right buyer.
Yeah, me too, man. Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. To learn more and see if this listing has already been sold, head over to empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for listing number 67952. And if you're watching this on YouTube, click the link in the description to go straight to the listing. And once you've unlocked this listing, you'll be given everything you need to know about this business. So until next time, enjoy your digital journey.